today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A ring return that may be flying somewhat low on the radar. This Thursday,
former unified featherweight champion Jelena Marjanovic of Canada will be returning to action on a Golden Boy Fight Night show.
One of two shows Golden Boy Promotions is staging this week. That's right. You've got the show on Thursday,
right.
Golden Boy Fight Night. Then you have Munguia versus Derevyanchenko on Saturday, going head-to-head with the Lopez versus Taylor card.
Don't forget, Matchroom has a show this weekend as well, going down in the UK. Sonny Edwards' Matchroom debut.
It's going to be a busy weekend. For now, let's talk about Jelena Marjanovic's ring return. She's coming off of 2 consecutive losses over the last 2 years to the same fighter, Erica Cruz.
Former WBA champion Erica Cruz.
Jelena lost 2 in a row to Erica. She hopes to rebound this week opposite the ring, veteran journeywoman Calista Silgado. I'm going to assume that this fight is somewhere in between featherweight and super featherweight.
Jelena Marjanovic sports a professional record of 41 wins with 12 losses, 2 draws,
19 knockouts, having never been knocked out. Having never been knocked out once in 55 professional contests. 55 professional bouts.
A 20-year veteran of the sport, and a testament to just how tough Jelena Marjanovic is. In truth, I don't think Jelena has enough left in the tank to win a title in today's featherweight or super featherweight division, but that doesn't mean that beyond this fight, there aren't other interesting fights out there for her.
I don't think she's after the featherweight division's undisputed champion, Amanda Serrano, or the super featherweight division's undisputed champion, Alicia Baumgartner. Jelena's got to be honest. She's got to know she doesn't stand a chance against those fighters, but the up-and-comers at those weights.
Yeah, she's 40 years old, with all the experience in the world, and while she may not be able to win a title from one of the champions at those weights,
against one of the challengers, one of those unbeaten up-and-comers anywhere in between 126 and 130 pounds, she can give one of them a run for their money.
Fighter like a Sky Nicholson or a Karis Artingstall, a Sophia Leash, a Sarah Liegman, who was in action this past weekend on the undercard of Shields versus Cornejo in Detroit.
A Raven Chapman and Ebony Jones, any one of those unbeaten up-and-comers at or around these weights that exhibit a high ceiling but don't have all of Jelena's experience and perhaps don't have her toughness. For her to have never been stopped, never knocked smooth out in 55 professional bouts is really saying something. A career that dates all the way back to 2003.
20 years.
I don't have any illusions about this Thursday's fight. She'll be facing a very familiar journeywoman in Calista Silgado, a fighter that has been in there with just about anybody and everybody at or around these weights. In all likelihood, Jelena Marjanovic might be able to, at minimum, win a points decision.
Having last seen action in September of last year,
Calista last saw action in December of last year, opposite the ring, Greece's own Kalia Kuruni.
Must-win fight for Jelena Marjanovic. If she insists on continuing in the sport, she has to at minimum prove that she can make it past the Calista Silgado, and if she does, and she does it in good fashion, maybe she can fight a former champion like a Sarah Mahfoud.
Or an unbeaten up-and-comer like a Sophia Leash, unbeaten Sophia Leash of Germany, who could use the experience, use the rounds in the bank with somebody like Jelena Marjanovic.
Now, if she can't make it past the likes of a Calista Silgado, at this point, it's about time that she pack it up.
There's no other way to put it. If I'm curt, I apologize, but it stands to reason that if you can't beat a Silgado, you don't stand a chance against many of the other fighters at or around these weights, and only more defeat, certain injury,
more losses, more heartbreak.
I don't really know what's running through Jelena Marjanovic's mind. I don't know how much longer she means to stay in the sport of boxing at the age of 40. Perhaps this is just her not wanting to retire on a loss, 2 losses. Her not wanting to retire off a defeat.
But if she's gonna retire, she wants to retire a winner. Maybe that's what this fight is, or maybe she wants to stay in the sport a little while longer, make some more money.
There is money to be made with Matchroom's Sky Nicholson or Queensbury's Raven Chapman,
Vosserman's Sophia Leash, or boxers Karis Artingstall.
Those fighters, those unbeaten up-and-comers, have major promotional outfits behind them.
I really don't think it's Jelena's intention to fight Amanda Serrano for all of her belts. She didn't want to fight her before. I don't think she wants to fight her now.
But perhaps she would be open to fighting one of them, someone greener than herself with less experience, less rounds in the bank. We'll see what happens after Thursday.
It's a drama. It's so terrible. So much talent, so many great fights that can be made in the heavyweight division. What the WBC has done has been lenient and flexible to try to make that Fury, Usyk, undisputed heavyweight championship. If Wilder and Reese are not fighting for the final elimination, Joshua's right there as number 3 as a possible Tyson Fury is a victim of the powers of money, the powers of abusing a position. But he's willing to fight anyone, and I'm sure he'll be active very soon.
Tyson Fury's not the victim of anything. If he felt like fighting any one of the guys in the WBC's ranks, not including Deontay, who he already fought 3 times, or Andy Ruiz.
They tried, but according to Tyson Fury, Andy wanted too much money.
We talked about that, and Anthony doesn't want to be bothered with Tyson Fury. He's got a 2-fight plan that spans all the way into December for a big fight with Deontay Wilder in December.
Talked about that.
Talked about him screwing the pooch for the Usyk fight. Now, Usyk is fighting Daniel Dubois in Poland.
Try as they might, they're not going to convince the boxing community at large that it's Usyk's fault that fight fell apart. Usyk never has a problem making a fight. Fury always does.
Without fail, he can never have a smooth set of negotiations. No, Tyson Fury can pick Frankie Sanchez out right now as his next fight. What's stopping him?
He's not a victim of anything. He can pick out Frankie Sanchez, Martin Bakole, Michael Hunter.
But he's still trying to ride Anthony Joshua's wave. You heard what Mauricio Suleiman said. Tyson Fury to get a new mandatory soon. The WBC president says Joshua is possible.
What about Usyk in December? You don't want to do that?
You don't want to fight for undisputed? All you need is a keep busy fight in between now and then. Just pick somebody.
Anybody.
What's stopping you? And I told you, the reason these guys seem like they're so focused on a Joshua fight is because they're not committed to fighting Usyk in Saudi in December. So they hope to swap out that fight with another big fight, a Joshua fight. The problem is, Joshua's supposed to be fighting in Saudi in December.
You're hoping that your WBC title will give you leverage over him, and to that, I think Anthony should ignore it.
If an order comes down from the WBC for Anthony to fight Tyson Fury, he should ignore that order and proceed with the plan to fight Wilder in December. These are leverage tactics to gain access to Anthony's marquee value as Tyson Fury hopes to negotiate such a fight.
He wants the lion's share.
But Tyson Fury's not the one on the Forbes list. Anthony is. Wilder and Ruiz were ordered to meet in a final world title eliminator, but the two sides never came close to a deal, and there doesn't appear to be one on the horizon. The WBC remained on the sidelines because they were hoping that Fury would reach a deal to face Usyk.
Usyk in April, but Fury fucked that up. Mauricio Suleiman's not going to say that, but we all know that's what happened.
Those negotiations fell apart, and now Usyk will defend against Daniel Dubois in August. We have to take some action, Suleiman told Sky Sports. There are different options. I'm going to address this with the Board of Governors because already we're entering June. There's no scenario. Tyson Fury will make us proud and show who the WBC champion is.
We all know who the WBC champion is. We just don't care.
The fans and many of the fighters themselves, as the WBC is one of the more openly corrupt organizations.
Why aren't you hitting the gas like this at middleweight?
The order for Wilder versus Ruiz was announced last November. We've been patiently waiting to do that. We didn't push it in the hope that Fury would fight Usyk, so that was all the way to March when the Fury versus Usyk negotiations fell apart. So we have to take some decisions. There is a possibility that former 2-time heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua will become the new mandatory for Tyson Fury. That's a possibility. If Wilder and Ruiz are not fighting for the final eliminator, Joshua's right there at number 3. That's possible, Suleiman said. I don't want to speculate because that would be irresponsible to try and make something up.
Anthony Joshua is supposed to be returning to action in August. Rumor has it that it will be Dillian Whyte that he fights. Dillian Whyte, who is said to have been made an offer for that fight earlier today.
If he accepts and Joshua's on board, then they'll fight in August. The hope here is from Team Fury to try to make this about a Joshua fight instead of an Usyk fight, an undisputed title fight. He's got more energy for AJ than he has for Usyk because he's never fancied Usyk.
Not even for all that money in Saudi?
Not if Frank Warren doesn't have control of the board, and not if it comes before a Joshua fight. If he were to fight Usyk ahead of Joshua and lose, he loses the belt and loses any, if not all, leverage in a potential Joshua fight moving forward. The only leverage he has now is that he's a champion. Lose that belt,
You lose it all.
you're not on the Forbes list. He is. Mauricio continued, at this stage, anything is possible. There's too much talent, too many great fights, too many great combinations that could be made for heavyweight, and everything is stalled.
It doesn't have to be. What's stopping Tyson Fury from fighting Martin Bakole? What's stopping Tyson Fury from fighting Michael Hunter or Frankie Sanchez?
What's stopping him? Do you think we don't see through this smoke screen? Your focus should be fighting Usyk in December in Saudi, where you can get the most money for the fight. There's no excuses.
There's no reason not to. The money is there, the belts are there.
Making this about Anthony Joshua doesn't change that. Instead of focusing on fighting Usyk, you want to fight the guy that he beat 2 times.
They'd never let Anthony Joshua get away with something like that.
The difference between Joshua and Fury is that if it were Joshua that had the WBC title, you wouldn't have to worry about that. He'd focus on the Usyk fight. That's why he had it 2 times, and Tyson Fury has yet to have it once.
He's not a grifter. He's not a con man like Tyson Fury.
This effort to make Anthony Joshua his mandatory challenger doesn't fool me, and you shouldn't allow them to fool you. Fury's focus, his only focus, and the only fight to make for Fury at this point is the Usyk fight.
You worry about Joshua afterwards.
They're nervous. They want to cash in on a Joshua fight at a time when he is perceived as being vulnerable, more vulnerable than he was in previous years. They want to cash in on that.
They're nervous that if he fights Wilder in December, Wilder's going to beat him. And they already fought Wilder 3 times.
I don't think they really want to go for a 4th in tandem with Tyson Fury, not fancying an Usyk fight.
He wants these fights in a certain order. He doesn't want to fight Usyk before he fights AJ, because if he fights Usyk, he might lose. And if he loses his belt, he loses his leverage.
He's got the same kind of marquee value that Anthony Joshua's got. That's why he's in the Forbes list and Fury isn't.
They want to make this about AJ to skip out on Usyk, and it's obvious.
What AJ ought to tell them is 50-50 or no fight. 50-50 split.
Fuck that, 60-40.
This guy shouldn't get to bail on Usyk and bail on crowning an undisputed champion so he can chase around Anthony Joshua.
It's pathetic.
Stupid. And why more members of the media aren't highlighting this, that Joshua, Anthony Joshua, should not be the focus for Tyson Fury, one of only 2 champions left in the men's heavyweight division.
Do you want an undisputed champion or not? Do you want to see an undisputed champion crowned or not?
Or do you want to keep making excuses for Tyson Fury? You want to keep trying to convince people that don't believe you that he's a victim.
A victim of what? What is stopping him from scheduling a fight?
You heard Mauricio Sulaiman make some mention of quote-unquote abusing their position, but who's abusing their position besides Fury? He can fight whenever he wants.
Usyk's got a fight coming up. Joshua's got a fight coming up. Why doesn't Fury?
Mauricio made some mention of the perils of money.
Money's the reason Fury ain't got a dance partner. He thinks he's supposed to get an arm and a leg every time he gets out there.
You can't get a fuck ton of cash fighting just anybody, so he doesn't want to fight just anybody. That's the gist of it.
That's what's going on.
That's why instead of focusing on Undisputed, he's focusing on Anthony Joshua, trying to use Mauricio Sulaiman in the WBC.
Get off that guy's dick.
Fight for Undisputed, you useless bag of milk. In men's welterweight news, ahead of the long-awaited, long-anticipated Errol Spence Jr. fight, Terrence Crawford says, "Fight with Spence sells itself. We don't need to act crazy."
Errol Spence Jr.'s presence hasn't really been felt since the fight has been announced. We've seen more of Terrence Crawford doing the rounds.
Terrence Crawford, who sees no reason to act wild and have unnecessary trash talking between him and Spence. "I think the fight sells itself," Crawford said to the MMA Hour. "I don't think that me nor Errol got to go out and do things that are not in our character just to sell the fight. When you look at the fight, you say, okay, you've got 2 undefeated top 5 pound-for-pound fighters in their prime, going head-to-head for the undisputed welterweight championship of the world. 2 action-packed fighters. What more do you need? You don't need me going out there acting all crazy. You don't need him going out there acting all crazy just to sell the fight. The fight's gonna sell itself because everybody knows."
It's been about 4 or 5 years in the making. Hard to say that the fight will do better now than it could have done years ago when the pay-per-view market was a lot healthier.
More stable. As you can imagine, over time, piracy has become a big issue in trying to sell a box office fight, as there are that many more ways to watch a box office fight free of charge.
It's easier now.
It's not that piracy hasn't always been around. It has. It has for many, many years. The difference now is that there's more of it, a lot more of it, to the point to where you really don't have to buy a box office fight to watch one.
Crawford has been out of the ring since December when he knocked out David Abanesian in the 6th round. For his part, Spence hit the ring last in April when he stopped Yordenis Lugas in 10 rounds to unify the WBA, WBC, and IBF titles.
I've often talked about how that doesn't help. That's not the least bit encouraging that the night of the fight, it will have been over a year's time since Errol Spence Jr. last saw action, and overall, the last 2 or 3 years, he really hasn't been that active.
Neither guy has been all that active, but Errol has been even less active than Terrence. He's had 1 fight, just 1 fight in the last 2 years, and just two in the last 3.
Whereas Terence Crawford has averaged 1 fight a year for approximately the last 3 years. He's had a fight in the last 12 months.
Hasn't been a year since he fought.
Both Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford share 2 common opponents in Kell Brook and Sean Porter. Both hold stoppage wins over Brook, although Crawford faced the Sheffield boxer at the tail end of his career.
Perhaps he did, but when he fought Kell Brook, he was coming off consecutive victories, whereas when Errol fought him, he was coming right off a loss to Gennady Golovkin.
Strange that the author of this article didn't think to mention that Kell Brook was coming off a massive weight cut and a 5th-round knockout loss to Gennady Golovkin ahead of the Spence fight, whereas the circumstances were a little bit more favorable in the Crawford fight. He was coming off consecutive wins.
Spence won a tough 12-round split decision over Sean Porter in 2019. 2 years later, Crawford,
who also had to deal with a lot of resistance in the fight, stopped Porter in the 10th. Porter retired after the fight. I feel like the author of this article...
It's a Spence fan. You know it's a fucking Spence fan. Look at the verbiage.
Errol Spence Jr. himself has said on more than one occasion that he doesn't believe in tune-up fights. Ahead of this fight, it will have been over a year's time since he last saw action, and there was enough time in there for him to squeeze in a tune-up fight, but he chose not to do that. So if he falters, if he loses, he doesn't have that to lean on.
He doesn't have that excuse.
Errol Spence Jr., in his own words, said that he didn't want to return to action. He didn't want to fight unless Terence Crawford was going to be his next fight. So if this goes sideways for him, his fans can't turn around and make excuses for it.
No.
This is what he wanted.
I'm not sure this is what they wanted.
Have noticed that the Errol Spence faction of fans have become quite argumentative over time, though I don't know why, seeing as the fight is made and underway. What's to argue about? If you've got Spence, tell your bookie.
What, are you nervous?
I feel like many of these fans and some content creators here on YouTube actually liked that the fight wasn't made when it wasn't made. It gave them that many more opportunities to trash talk Terence Crawford, belittle him, and berate him, whereas now
you gotta put up a shut up. Now you gotta put your money where your mouth is. Now we'll finally get the answer.
And I don't think they're at all happy about that. They may pretend that they wanted this fight, but underneath it all, I think they're nervous.
Otherwise, what the hell are you arguing about?
My feelings haven't changed over all these years. I still have Terence Crawford winning the fight by way of knockout or technical knockout late into it.
I have no need to justify that prediction to any of Spence's fans. If you've got Spence, then
tell your bookie, not me.